As tributes continue to pour in following the passing of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, former President Thabo Mbeki joins me now. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President. We do appreciate it this evening. Let's start off with your reflections of the man that we are mourning today, Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
The man who are mourning today, Heidi, is clearly, obviously, one of these outstanding leaders of our people, who's led us in many different ways. He led us during very difficult time of the struggle here at home to defeat the apartheid regime, to defeat the apartheid system. Many people getting killed, and a lot of suffering. But he stayed in the front trenches of that struggle all the time. As one of our leaders, he continued that role as one of our leaders as we're building this new democratic South Africa. I'm talking here particularly about two things, one of them being his leadership of the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was an important intervention in terms of the struggle to kind of fashion the kind of South Africa that we want. But also in that context, outside of the TRC process, he remained an important voice of conscience. Conscience about what kind of South Africa we need, what kind of leadership should be provided. What are the responsibilities of our parties, of the ANC, of individuals? What are our responsibilities to our people, to ourselves, to our consciences, to our souls? I'm saying that it's an important intervention here to define the kind of South Africa we want. So we're mourning the departure of an outstanding leader, outstanding also in the rest of the world. That is why they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. He's a man who's admired across the globe, who in a sense brought millions of people across the globe into that struggle for the defeat of apartheid and the building of the new. The leaders of that caliber are very difficult to find.
Speaking of the leaders of that kind of caliber, do you think that he would be proud of where South Africa is at the moment and the kind of leadership that we have in this country?
No, he would not be. He would not be. And indeed, I think all of us who care to know very well that the Archbishop was very disturbed about what had been happening, what continues to be happening, at the levels of corruption, at the failure to make the necessary progress to address the challenges of poverty, of inequality, and so on, the levels of crime, the lawlessness in the society. We know very well that Archbishop was very disturbed about all of those things. It's not this kind of South Africa that he visualized during all of these years that he was involved in struggle, and indeed wanted something better. I think when he said at some point that there might very well come a time when people might pray, that he might lead prayers for the downfall of the ANC as he led prayers for the downfall of the National Party, I think he meant that seriously, because he was very disturbed about the wrong things that were happening in our country.
Speak to us about how you felt and how the ANC felt at the time when the Arch was very vocal and he criticized the South African government, especially around the issue of not granting a visa to his very close friend, the Dalai Lama. He was very stern in what he said. He said, "We are warning you, the ruling party." What did you make of that criticism back then?
No, personally, I understood. We had been exposed to the Archbishop for a number of decades during the course of the struggle. We knew the kind of person he was. We knew his attachment to principle. we knew what he stood for. And therefore, the position that he took on the matter of the Dalai Lama, it didn't come as a surprise. That didn't come as a surprise, that he spoke up and spoke out with the kind of strength and conviction and passion, which he did. No, it should not have come as a surprise. That was, to him, I'm sure the decision to deny the visa then had to do with interstate relations between the government of South Africa and the government of China. I'm sure that's what it had to do with. What he was raising was that you can't allow political considerations of any kind to intervene in a matter which had to do with interfaith relations, which had to do with all of that sort of sustenance of a particular value system. And I'm sure no honest person among ourselves, I'm talking about the ANC leadership, no honest person would have been surprised at what the Archbishop said.
Mr. President, I want to get a sense of whether or not you ever disagreed with him, working very closely with him. What was your interactions with him?
No, we never disagreed with the Archbishop. There was one occasion when I sent a note to him to say that he was Archbishop. He's still practicing as Archbishop. This is before he retired. Saying to him that, sometimes I understand very well the need for him to speak out, but sometimes it is better that he checks with the government about, government, why are you doing this thing? What are the reasons and all of that? Not so that he should necessarily agree with the government, but that clearly in some instances he acted without access to certain information. That's the only time I ever contacted him. I said, look, I'm quite open to this. Anytime you want any information, I'll give it to you. You can then do whatever you wish to do with it. It was not a disagreement, but it was from my point of view, an understanding that in some instances he was acting because he didn't have access to certain information that government had.
Speak to us about when he was asked by President Mandela in 1999 to chair the TRC. Do you know how he felt? Because that process has actually never been completed and no one has actually been prosecuted for the crimes committed against humanity during apartheid.
Well, that was, we all discussed the matter about who should chair the TRC, and indeed among ourselves in government, in the ANC even, the view was unanimous that the Archbishop would be the best placed person to do this. And this really because of the role he had played during the course of the struggle. Now you had this challenge, the challenge of the TRC, which had to meet and consider all of what had happened, these gross human rights violations, listen to all of that, and take some important decisions, like these ones about amnesty, about reparations, and so on. And all of us were unanimous in the view that the Archbishop would be the best person to do this. And indeed, when President Mandela approached him, he did not hesitate. He understood that this was a part of the continuation of the struggle in which he had been involved for a long time.
Mr. President, I want to speak about the kind of qualities that the Arch had and where we are now as a country. He always spoke about human rights and treating everybody as equals. He was very vocal, especially about how people were not treated equally and fairly, especially in the LGBTQI+ community. And I want to get your sense of the kind of qualities that the Arch had and looking at the current leadership that we have today.
The Archbishop was a very humane person, humanistic, in a sense, very, very people-centered. I think he understood very well his pastoral duties as a priest to the ordinary people. He was very, very much driven by that. what is it that we need to do in order to help to create this better society? Not only to talk about the hereafter as a priest, but also to address the here and now. These people who are his flock, they are suffering today, need to be addressed today. So I think he was inspired by that. And fundamental, I'm saying fundamental, I think, to the makeup of an Archbishop Tutu is that humanism, that thing which drove him, which was it's in his faith, but it was also in his mind and everywhere else. That this is what he himself lived for, to see what could be done in order to uplift the people.
I want us to go back to the TRC because many people remember his very important and crucial role in the TRC. Do you think that justice was done?
Well, the TRC had many objectives. It was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. A central task of the TRC was not to punish, but to achieve the reconciliation. You have a very, very divided society. South Africa, as it was then, as it continues to be, very divided, capable of intense conflict. Fears always that one day they might break out an outbreak of a racial war. The matter of national reconciliation was very vital to the work of the TRC. So it contributed in part to that. The matter of punishment had to do with what hopefully would only be a handful of people who would refuse to go through the amnesty process. So that then we deal with the justice issue in that manner. And of course, then there would be people who would want to subtract themselves from the amnesty process, in which case the law has to kick in and do what needs to be done. That is an outstanding job. But that was not central to the tasks of the TRC. The task of the TRC was to help us to achieve this national reconciliation, which we still need to this day.
Mr. President, do you agree with the families that are still seeking closure?
You know, I lost my son. I lost my brother. My father stayed in jail for many years. All of us need closure. All of us absolutely need closure. And whatever needs to be done to achieve that closure, let it be done. But I think as a country, so those things must be done for us. Individuals were directly affected in the way that I'm explaining to you. But for the country as a whole, the major task the country needs is a process of national reconciliation. We must deal with these things which divide our country, which the levels of poverty are too high. The levels of inequality in wealth, in income, in everything, on a racial basis, those things need to be addressed, because unless you address them, then you won't have the reconciliation. These are major, major tasks. Now, the TRC could not attend to those matters. The rest of us, the political activists, the leadership, and so on, to say, let's create the society visualized in our constitution, because that would give the basis for the kind of reconciliation for which the TRC, to which the TRC made a contribution. So I'm saying that is central. That is central. The matter of people who did not go to can't get amnesty must be pursued, must be resolved. But we can't say that becomes the central national task. The central national task is to rescue our country from the evils of the legacy of the apartheid system. It's very pervasive in all manner of ways: poverty, unemployment, all of these things, which I'm saying are very central to any process of national reconciliation. So I think that's where we need to focus.
Mr. President, I don't want to get too political, and I want to remain on the topic of the Archbishop and the memories and the lessons we can learn. But I'm keen to get a sense of what your stance is about those calling for the fact that de Klerk should have been prosecuted.
No, I think the decision was correct. The decision that the country took to say that to deal with the matter of justice in South Africa, to deal with the issue of justice, it would not help us to say, let's take the Nuremberg route. Let those people who were responsible for apartheid, let them be charged. We were avoiding a situation where you would have a perpetuation of the conflict. If you said, if to the apartheid generals and the apartheid police and F.W. de Klerk and all of these people, that what democracy means is that you are going to be charged and sent to jail, then why would they have accepted to have a democratic South Africa? They would have resisted. They would have fought back. So we said, no, we need democracy, we need justice, we need reconciliation. How do you achieve all of those things together? So the route that South Africa took, which was a truth and reconciliation route, it was to address the matter of justice. And I think it was correct. To have taken any other position, to say that charge de Klerk, charge General Meiring, charge General van der Merwe, all of these people, we would have said, let's continue the war. We should never have come back into exile in a situation like that. We should have stayed in Lusaka, because you can't come here and say, let's negotiate a change, and then I'm going to make sure that on day one of democracy, we are taking you to court. It would have just meant a perpetuation of the conflict, and we wanted to avoid that.
Mr. President, I want to move over to the kind of resentment that we are seeing towards the Archbishop, especially out of that documentary that actually aired on eNCA with Mama Winnie Mandela, and how she felt as though she could not forgive the Arch for him asking her to apologize for what happened. What is your sense with regards to that kind of resentment towards Archbishop Tutu?
Well, I don't know who resents it. I don't know who resents that. Because, I mean, the Archbishop had to, and his colleagues on the TRC, they had to act in the way that was described by the law that the governing party had put to Parliament, which Parliament had approved. They had to act according to that. If the Archbishop felt, and the rest of the TRC, felt that they had certain information and therefore asked for an apology on the basis of that information, which was part of the processes of the TRC. I don't know who would resent that, because unless you are saying that whatever information the Archbishop had was incorrect and therefore he acted incorrectly. But I doubt if he would have acted on information that was false.
Mr. President, I want to quickly speak about the fact that the Archbishop said poverty is human-made. And just looking at the economic climate that we are in at this stage, what lessons should we be drawing from the Archbishop, especially around how unequal this country is and poverty levels that we are experiencing?
I think really the central lesson really we need to draw from him is that the Archbishop always insisted that what really we are about, it doesn't matter whether you're a president or a mayor or a priest or whatever, what we are really about is a better life for the people. So everything we do has got to address that. That's why I was saying that he was a humane person, a humanistic person. So I think that is what we should, that lesson we should learn. Fortunately, with regard to the matter that you are just addressing now, You know, you remember that last year, everybody here in South Africa said we face a common challenge of poverty and inequality and all that. Hence the net-leg processes where the social partners get together to say, let us act together to address these challenges. I think that's a major challenge, that those social partners must then get together to act and make sure that we deal with these problems of poverty and all of that. And really, I think that any tribute, if we say we want to respect the legacy of an Archbishop Tutu, that would be part of that respect, that we actually do act together to address these challenges to which he pointed out.
Mr. President, let's end off with on a positive note. Do you have any fond memories of him? Any funny moments that you could share with us? I do know that he had quite an infectious laugh, but he was also quite strict.
Well, I mean, for me, you know, in 90 we got married. Zanel, myself and my wife, we got married in England in 1974. And then in a registry. And then Zanela's sister then insisted that we needed the marriage to be blessed. And fortunately, we were with Reverend Tutu then, and his wife Cecilia in England. And that's the person we chose to come and bless our wedding. That is long before he became a well-known activist and all that. But I mean, we knew what he felt and what he thought about our situation and so on. So, and therefore, these are people who have been very close. He's been very close to us. Zanele was reminding me today, for instance, that whenever we would meet, when I was deputy president and president, he would always say to us, to teasing us, to say that, you know, God works in mysterious ways, because even he gives us the toy presidents and toy vice presidents like this one, and laugh. Because we had that kind of relationship. It was a close personal relationship, and very, very supportive all the time. He would, whenever we would meet, he would say, keep it up, you are doing very well. Or whenever I had a problem, no, President, please, not like this. So he was, in that sense, a very a helping hand during all of these years that we were in government. And I think we need to say this. Really, our sincere condolences to Cecilia, because she was also very, very much part of that process. Our condolences to her and the rest of the family. We've lost a leader, but for us younger, a person who was really a friend, and gave a helping hand all the time.
Thank you so much for that. We really do appreciate it. That was President Thabo Mbeki reflecting on the life of Archbishop Desmond Tutu.